This is Volleyball Recruiting 101. Can everyone see my screen and hear me okay? If you can, type the word yes into your chat box. Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and get started. My name's Kelly. I'm one of the head volleyball recruiting coaches here. To give you guys a little bit of my background, I did play volleyball in college. I played for the University of Minnesota. I loved my experience there. I would absolutely 100% do again. My favorite memory has to be playing for the national championship. We ended up losing to Stanford, but it was a really amazing experience. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, even though it was here. I also trained with the U.S. national team after college, so that was a really great experience as well. But I've been working for NCSA for a long time and definitely enjoy what I do. So today what I want to talk about with you guys is kind of going over all the different division levels for women's volleyball, so really talking about the opportunities. So we'll cover D1, D2, 3, NAIA, and also junior college. We'll talk scholarship availability at these levels, recruiting timeline, and then also just some general recruiting tips as well. I don't plan to keep you too long. I'm trying to keep it under 30 minutes, so hang in there. If you need to leave, I understand. Please know that I am recording this, so you guys will all get the recording emailed to you so you can listen to it again or go back and check out any of the slides. Also, so you don't feel like you have to frantically take notes. I think that's good to know. If you do have questions, you can type them into your chat box, or just save them until the end and I can cover them with you, or you're always welcome to follow up with me. Your confirmation email comes from my email, so feel free to reach out if that's easier too. All right, so let's get started first with Division I. So this is the division level that I think most people are the most familiar with, because we can actually watch D1 volleyball on TV, which is really cool. But, talking scholarship breakdown, there are up to 12 scholarships available, no partials, because women's volleyball is considered a head count sport. So what it means is that, a D1 coach couldn't take, let's say, one of their 12 full scholarships and divide it in half and then, start to use that with more players. So they can only use it on one player. That's why it's head count. So most D1 rosters are going to probably have on average 15, if not a little more players. So with only having 12 scholarships, that means not everyone is on scholarship, and technically those players who are not earning athletic scholarship would be called walk-ons. And walk-on is a term that I think scares some people, but for Division I, it's very common. I'm very positive in saying that every Division I program has walk-ons on their roster. And these can be recruited players who can have playing time, or maybe, they're part of the team in some way. Maybe playing time is limited, but it only varies per program. So scholarships are technically for 1 year at a time. They are renewable year to year. Sometimes a coach might say, we don't have a scholarship available for you right away, or we could offer you a 2-and-2, would mean you could walk on for 2 years and then there's scholarship available in your junior and senior years. So sometimes those things exist. It doesn't always have to be 4 years or nothing. There can be some in between as well, which is good to know. There are 330 teams at this level. Only 0.8% of all high school players play at the D level. So it's honestly super, super selective, and a very small number that actually go on here. Next bullet probably isn't so surprising, but it's the highest level of competition, so it does promote a very business-like atmosphere. I can definitely speak to that. Coaches can tell you what you can and cannot major in, what to eat, what to wear, what time to be places, what your schedule needs to look like, lots of things. So they kind of own you in that respect. which is a little nuts, but that's Division I for you. It's definitely performance driven. The next thing here, most D1 athletes are top performers in high school and club. High school in general doesn't get a lot of emphasis or focus from coaches just because this is when they are in season. But club, on the other hand, is their recruiting season because it is their off season. They have a lot more time to start to watch players, evaluate, make decisions. There's a lot of players under one roof, especially in some of those bigger tournaments. So club is probably where coaches are getting a lot more interest-driven and kind of using that as a big tool for their evaluation. And no, not everyone needs to play open for club to get recruited by a D1 school. But if you think about it, the open level is obviously very competitive, so it makes sense that there's going to be a lot of D1 coaches watching those courts, keeping track of those players. But there's definitely players in other levels that coaches are probably wanting to watch as well. Everyone can get letters from a D1 school. It doesn't always mean that you are a Division I recruit. Obviously getting feedback from the coach and having communication with them is going to be super important. The timeline for D1. So this one is a little tricky, so bear with me here, but September 1st of junior year. So for any 2019s, we aren't so far away from that, believe it or not. The summer has gone very fast. But starting September 1st, what this means is that Division I schools can email, call, and text with you as much as they want. So if you call and leave a voicemail, they can now call you back come this date. So it does make communication very convenient. Before September 1st, you have to get kind of creative. Coaches have to get creative. They can communicate through a third person, so they could reach out to a club coach, a high school coach. They could reach out to us as volleyball recruiting coaches to pass along information to you to try to communicate or get you to their campus or on the phone. When those things happen, I would definitely look at that as like a good sign of interest. You can also be proactive because you guys are not the ones who are restricted. If you wanted to call a Division I coach and they answered, they are allowed to talk to you. If you left a voicemail, they couldn't reach your call until September 1st or after. But, again, there are ways to make communication happen because what you guys will see with the next bullets here is that D programs can offer early. You don't have to wait for a certain date. More D1 programs are looking at 8th graders very heavily, which is honestly, it's kind of a little depressing, but it's also to be expected because it's Division I. Not all D1 programs are going to operate on the same timeline. There's so many factors that go into it, different grad years, how many in those grad years, what's happening with their current team, getting through a fall season to determine what they need for another year, how far ahead are they, all those kinds of things. So there's going to be D1 programs that, aren't willing to offer an 8th grader, a freshman, or even a sophomore. They want to see things play out into junior year. So anytime you are connecting with a D1 coach, or really any coach for that matter, it's going to be important to know what is their time frame for finalizing your position in your grad year. So hearing it from them directly and not assuming one fits all is very important. I will say that most D1 offers are usually made by summer before senior year just because they can. So again, this is kind of just a general statement, but this is what we see a lot just because, again, they don't have to wait on admissions. Okay, the next division level to talk about here is D2. So scholarship breakdown for D2, they have up to 8 scholarships available, and typically all of these will be partial. So unlike Division I, who have head count sport and they can't divide scholarships, Division II can definitely divide and spread out their scholarships because 8 scholarships isn't going to fill a roster. Coaches are going to need more than that. So they're going to try to use outside scholarships to help them recruit a competitive team. So if you are high academic, good GPA, strong test scores, you're going to be much more attractive to a coach as a recruit because likely you're going to get money from the school, and then having that assistance means coach may not have to do as much for you from an athletic scholarship perspective, or they can use that money to recruit other players, and therefore they're being competitive in their recruiting. So it's a really big draw for these schools. And it is the coach's goal to try to reduce the overall cost for many as they can on their roster. So again, this is where those outside scholarships become a big deal. 300 teams at this level. 300 teams at this level. Not all teams are created equal when it comes to their recruiting budget. So there might be a coach that would love to bring someone out for an official visit, but official means technically they could pay for your visit, just to be clear. But they might not be able to afford to pay for your airfare, for example. That's not weird. That's not unheard of. Sadly, it's normal. You know, volleyball isn't like a football revenue sport. It can be tough. And there's coaches that might want to go and recruit at a lot of national qualifiers, but their budget might restrict them and they have to pick and choose what they're allowed to do. So these are things that are just kind of good to be aware of. If a coach does offer you an official visit, it's okay to say, you know, will any part of that visit be paid for if they hadn't brought it up already. Tryouts are allowed after January 1st of junior year. This is very confusing to some recruits. Like they don't know that this is okay. It is okay, and they can do this while you're visiting a school. Some will have an open tryout where anyone can come and try out with them. If they are planning to do that on a visit, they'll probably be letting you know, and it's okay to ask just to make sure. In general, so we just kind of talked about D1, definitely a heavy focus on volleyball. D2 really has a different approach. They are more balanced. They like to say we're the best of both, you know, academics and athletics 50-50. So that's kind of a good thing to know about D2. You may have a better lifestyle. It's not going to be all into one thing. The timeline for D2, so their big contact date is going to be June 15th after sophomore year. And this date means that they can email, call, and text you as much as they want. Now, this is a timeline that actually makes sense for D2 because junior year in general for Division II is a big year for their recruiting. I think a lot of that plays into they look at test scores. And most are going to have probably a test score to report at some point in junior year. So with having that test score, coaches can look and evaluate to see, okay, what kind of money can you get through our school, and can we get you in? And that kind of brings up the conversation of being able to talk with you about it, but also knowing what they can do with their athletic money. So junior year, big year for D2s. Now, D2s can offer sooner than that, so I don't want to, again, create a rule here. I think it's important that any school you're contacting, you know what their time frame is for finalizing your position, kind of where they are with their recruiting. But it is good to know that D2s do a lot of that recruiting junior, and some can do a lot of recruiting into senior year too if needed. Division III is our next level to break down. One of the biggest things I think people are concerned with when it comes to D3 is just the scholarship opportunities. So Division III schools are not allowed to offer a specific volleyball scholarship. They don't have that. They can't. They have other scholarships they can work with. You know, Division III schools can have large endowments where they're able to put together packages, and some of these packages can be pretty generous, comparable to D2, sometimes better. It really varies. So I wouldn't run for the hills, knowing that they can't do anything for you volleyball-wise. And the reason for that is if you look at kind of the middle bullet here, 434 teams. This is the most opportunities of all levels. There's the most teams at this level. So it's good to kind of keep things open, especially if you need options. We'll talk about their timeline here in a little bit, but another thing to keep in mind is the budget thing. So recruiting budgets at this level can vary too with coaches. So they are allowed to offer official visits, which could be paid for. If they're offering one to you, it's okay to ask if any part of that would be covered. Now, as far as like a lifestyle at the D3 level, academics actually come first and make a lot of decisions for D3. So I have a lot of student athletes I work with who looked at D3 strictly because, hey, I don't want anyone telling me I can't do nursing, or I want to be competitive within my major. It's very important that this is setting me up for what I want to do next. I don't want to have to be forced into changing my major or not being able to continue on because it's a competitive major and I couldn't put the time into it. So these coaches know that. They understand that. Now, these are still, volleyball teams. You're still very much on the team and have that aspect to it, but academics, again, is kind of what makes decisions there. Off season is going to be far less demanding. There may not be a lot of obligations as a team. So study abroad internships can be very practical. And again, those competitive majors, those really extensive majors can be very much welcomed at this level. Their timelines. So they don't have a contact date like D1 and D2. They are allowed to contact student athletes at any point in their high school career. And also, the thing to know is that because Division III schools can't offer like an athletic scholarship, everything for them revolves around admissions. So applying to the school probably at some point senior year, and then hearing back from admissions that you've been accepted, and then knowing what kind of package they can offer you. And that's when decisions are usually made. Now, there are some Division III schools that can kind of verbally make offers before admissions goes out, but obviously everything depends on admissions. So this is also kind of a general statement, but admissions does control a lot of the way Division III recruiting happens. Now, that said, a lot of recruiting for Division III is still very traditional. These coaches aren't going to wait until senior year to start recruiting. They're going to watch freshmen. They're going to watch sophomores. They want to build their radar for who's interested, who they're interested in when the time comes, being able to encourage those players to apply, having relationships with those players too, like knowing, what kind of student they are, knowing their parents, getting a feel for, what are they looking for? Would this be a good fit for them? Being able to visit those schools before senior year. All of that still exists. But because of their later timeline for making decisions, this can be where maybe this is backup options for you, or if you need more options, Division III can be a good place for that too. Most official visits take place in late winter or early spring of senior year, again, kind of revolving around hearing back from admissions. Just kind of a little breakdown of rules. So I kind of touched on this, but I know sometimes it's nice to see a visual. Again, you guys are going to get the recording of this. You can always come back to this again and check out and make sure you're on top of it. The next division level here is NAIA, and most people just want to know, what is that? What is this NAIA? So NAIA is actually completely separate from the NCAA. So the NCAA is everything we just covered, D1, D2, and D3. NAIA is its own governing body, so they make their own rules and are their own set of schools. Now, here's the thing. They are very similar to D2. So everything we're going to go over here, you're going to feel like it's deja vu, like we just covered that. Yes, we did. So everything is very, very similar to D2. Starting with scholarship breakdown, they have up to 8 scholarships available. Typically, all of these are partial. They're going to try to spread it out. High academics would be really welcome here, in order to get outside scholarships and for coaches to be competitive with their recruiting and be able to spread things out a bit. There are 219 teams. You can also take one official visit per school at NAIA level, so no limit on the overall amount, but just one per school. And they are also allowed to have tryouts. So this is, sometimes very common, for a coach to say, we'd like to have you come in and scrimmage with our team, or try out, or practice with our team when you come to visit. It's basically a tryout. So that's good to know. And let's see, got information for you. Timeline, again, similar to D2. They don't have any contact rules, and that's actually what NAIA really likes, is that they don't have have rules. They don't want to be restrictive in their communication. If a student athlete is making such a big decision about going to college and finding the right program, they want open communication with the coach because you should feel comfortable. So that's kind of their mantra. They also just have less rules in general. So like an NAIA coach could chat with you during a club tournament, no big deal. Where those other division levels, there's rules in place that you have to wait until a certain time frame, or you could say hi, but you can't say anything else. NAIA, they can kind of do a lot more. So there's a lot of freedom for coaches to recruit and be able to kind of start building relationships with student athletes pretty early. Junior year can also be a big year for them, again, similar to D2 in the fact that, test scores become available and they know what they can do with their money. Junior college is our last level to break down here. There are scholarships available at this level, and actually junior college can be the most generous. They have up to 14 scholarships available. There aren't any scholarships, though, at the CCCAA schools, which are out of California. So just a heads up on that. They're not allowed to do scholarships. Also some other weird rules with those schools in California. Some of them are allowed to recruit out of state. Some of them aren't allowed to recruit out of their region. Like there's one in San Diego that can't recruit outside of San Diego. And there's some that can't contact recruits until they contact them first, or they have to wait until July 15th after senior year. So, yes, you did hear me right. After someone would graduate from high school, July 15th, they would be allowed to contact them. So what that is going to tell you is that junior colleges can have a very late recruiting timeline. They are essentially the last on the totem pole. My sister's a junior college volleyball coach, and they're going to be starting their preseason. I think they started this week. And every year she manages to get players added on her roster, like after they've been practicing for a couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if I talked to her very soon and she said, yeah, I have another player that's going to join us next week, even though they've already started preseason. It's never really too late. Junior colleges kind of are always recruiting. So I think that's just good to know. There are some junior colleges that are very competitive. And I think one of the big reasons for that is because there can be D1 non-qualifiers. A Division I non-qualifier refers to a student athlete who didn't meet the NCAA requirements for eligibility center. So this would have been GPA, core classes, test scores, something didn't get them to a place where they were academically eligible to play at the D1 level. What they can do is go to a junior college, still play volleyball, and get their academics to a place where they would be qualified to transfer and then maybe go to that D1. So there are a lot of talented players that go junior college, and there's others that just want maybe a little bit more time to make a decision. Maybe they're late bloomers, maybe they're just trying to save a little bit in college costs to go to, a less expensive school for a year or two. I mean, there can be many reasons. There's international players that want to come to the States, but they need to work on their English a little bit. So there's some really strong college programs out there. And then there's some that maybe aren't as competitive, so there's definitely a range to it. There's D1, D2, and D3, kind of the breakdown within junior college, just to give you a heads up. But again, good to know that they can do a lot of late recruiting. So if you need options late into the process, this could be a very good option to know about. The other thing that's great is that you can transfer from your college without having to sit out a year. So there's no red tape on you as long as you are academically qualified. So for example, that D1 recruit who didn't meet the eligibility standards can't go to junior college for like a week and then transfer. That's just not how it works. But when they do become academically qualified, they can make that transfer and they don't need to request permission. So that's kind of nice. There's no red tape there. From a college coach perspective, I think it's important to say they really like junior college transfers because if you can recruit a college level player, come in and help them out. for their team, help fill a role, fill a hole within their roster. That's a big sell for them. There might be high school freshmen that are big question marks for them. Like, oh, are they going to be ready for college? Where I can get a transfer who is already acclimated to college and has credits, knows the drill, and has leadership qualities, I could bring that in instead. So there's a very big recruiting aspect to junior college as well. I think that was everything I wanted to cover there. So I know I covered a lot of information with you guys, so thanks for hanging in there with me. Like I said, I did record this, so I will be emailing you guys this recording here in a bit. If you have questions, go ahead and that chat box if you like. If you would prefer to follow up personally, please feel free. I did put our main line and email on here. I'm on Twitter, so if anyone wanted to follow me on Twitter, that's great. I just want to say thank you for joining today. I hope this was helpful. If you're feeling good, you can go ahead and close out of the webinar. Thanks again. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.